Yes, okay, so we're gonna go ahead and get started. I'm Jasmine, I'm one of the senior advisors here. And I will be introducing Chef Renee.
Hello.
A little bit about Chef Renee, for those who don't know, she did go to Johnson and Wales University where she earned her pastry degree. She did begin her career working in fine dining in Providence, Rhode Island, where she mainly focused on Italian and French cuisines. After that, she moved to California, where she worked in restaurants in Napa Valley, Oakland, and San Francisco. But before becoming a pastry department instructor at California Culinary Academy in Le Cordon Bleu in San Francisco. Today, she will be doing a fresh fruit tart demonstration for you guys. So I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to you, Chef Renee.
Okay, thank you very much, Jasmine. Hi, I'm Chef Renee, and I'm seeing people from my neighborhood, Benicia. This is great. It's great to see every single one of you and see where you're all from. And some of you are already enrolled for the fall. It's so exciting. Today, I'm going to be doing a fresh fruit tart, like Jasmine said, and this is like the beginning of the best time of year to be making fresh fruit tarts. Everything's coming in to the markets now, and there's so much variety, so much color, so much flavor, just about to start. So this is my favorite time of year to be making a fresh fruit tart. Not that we can't do them in other times of the year, but oh, come on, berries, cherries, stone fruits, all the good stuff. So we are going to be doing that together today. You guys already have or will be getting a packet with the formulas for each of the components. I'm going to show you guys a quick demo on how to assemble all those components into one fresh fruit tart. So let me switch my cameras from me to my counter. Pardon me. All right, so this is what's called my mise en place. Now, if you're not familiar with that term, mise en place simply means to put in its place or having been put together in its place. And that means all of the things that I need to build a tart for today are all in front of me. So you'll see I've got my my crust here already in its shell. It's my tart shell in its tart pan. I've got some fresh berries, raspberries, blackberries, strawberries, along with a whole bunch of other fruit. Once I get everything prepared, I've got some pastry cream, which is going to be our main filling, as well as some melted dark chocolate that's going to line the tart, and to finish it off, a little bit of apricot jam that's been melted down and strained. That's going to give me a bunch of shine and a little bit of protection for my tart as it is being stored away. So other parts of my mise en place, I always have my tools in front of me as I begin, and that's going to be an offset spatula, a couple of knives, some brushes, different brushes for brushing different things on, a fork, and I'll show you why in a minute, and a Y peeler, which I'll be using to skin some of my fruits. So first things first, we're going to start with this raw tart dough. And this is the only part of the tart that needs to be baked. So everything else kind of goes back to back onto the counter while I do this part. What I'm going to do is called a blind bake, which means that I'm going to bake it in the oven so that the crust is nice and finished, golden, dry, fully baked, but without any other filling in it. And so what I'll do first is I'll line my tart pan with my tart dough. This is called pâte sucrée, which just means sweet dough. And I'm going to poke it almost all the way through, but not quite all the way through, with a fork. And that's going to allow the dough to bake nice and flat without any air bubbles pushing it up and causing a dome. If you get a dome, it's not the end of the world, but it does provide a bit less room to put all the good stuff that you're going to put. Excuse me, I've had too much coffee. It gives you a little bit less room to fill up. So, and we want to fill this thing up with a lot of great stuff. So we dock this. The second thing we're going to do is I'm going to line this with what's called a liner. This is parchment paper. I had this off to the side because it's a little less pretty than fruit. I'm lining this with a piece of parchment paper that I've crumpled up so that it keeps nice and pliable and doesn't poke into my dough. And this is just a whole bunch of dry beans that are going to act as pie weights so that the dough, as I put it into the oven, is going to stay in place, not move, not slump down or come up as a bubble or anything like that. This is going to keep everything in place. And now I can put this into the oven. I'm not going to make you wait for that to bake all the way because we'll be here for a long, long time. So magic of television, here is an already baked tart shell. Can you do a fresh fruit tart in something other than a round tart pan? Of course you can. I happen to prefer this one. I think it looks really nice when it's all finished. So this is my fully baked tart shell. You want to make sure that it's nice and dry. If you poke it, it's pretty solid. And it has a nice golden hue around the edge and down the sides. That's my indicator that it is it's ready to come out of the oven. So why do we call this blind baking? It's because with all those beans in there, I can't see how done this thing is. So I go by timing. I bake this for about 22 minutes at 350 degrees. And once I start to see a little bit of that golden color developing around the side, then I just peeled back my paper and the beans, checked out the color, and gave it another 10 or so minutes in the oven with all of those beans out. And all I had to do was just pick up the corners of my paper, lift it away gently, and pop this back into the oven until I got this color. And now it's nice and crisp, pretty solid, and ready to be lined. All right. Oh, please do interrupt. Scarlett, you have a question. But I ask, will this demonstration be recorded and shared? That's a good question. Jasmine, is this being recorded and shared? Oh, we'll find that out, Scarlett. Okay. Before this ends.
Yes,
okay,
it will.
Okay, thank you. So here comes my dark chocolate. This is just plain dark chocolate, nothing in it. And I'm going to brush this with a nice dry brush into the bottom of my tart shell. Anybody have an idea of why I would want to do this? Aside from, wow factor and yum. It will taste good, that's for sure. But there's a practical use for doing this besides it tasting really good and looking really good. Anybody know? So the liquid won't leak and ruin the pastry. Yeah, you've got it. You got it exactly right. So this chocolate's doing kind of a double duty. It's not only going to make this look really cool and taste really good along with a whole bunch of cream filling and fruit, but it's also going to protect the tart shell from getting soggy. It's sort of a almost waterproof layer. And I only need a very thin amount, a really thin layer to get the job done. But I'm going to, got it a little bit on the sides, which is okay, that's fine. But really over the bottom is what we want. A nice thin, even layer. And then, yeah, as this sets and solidifies, it's going to protect that pastry crust from the pastry cream, which is got a good amount lot of water content to it, and we'll make that thing soggy after a while. We want this to be able to last all day long. If we were, say, making this for a bakery, we'd want this to be as good at 6 p.m. as it was at 6 a.m. So without sogging out. So that's what we do.
And
Now,
Chef, Abby has a question. She's wanting to know, can we use something besides chocolate?
well, chocolate's the best one, but you can switch up your chocolates and use, say, a white chocolate or a ruby chocolate, which would be very beautiful. If you don't want necessarily that little chocolate stripe at the very bottom to show, you can use something that'll kind of blend in a little bit nicer, like a white chocolate. I like to see it, so I use the dark chocolate, but you can use any of those. Those are the best ones to use. Can we use white chocolate? Lillian, absolutely. All right, great questions. So,
Chef Renee, there's one more question.
Yes, please.
Someone wants to know, will the fruit stick to the tart?
It will. Actually, it will indeed. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put in the main filling, which is the pastry cream. And pastry cream, if you're unfamiliar, it's a lot like pudding. It's not quite as wet. But what it does is it provides a creamy layer, but also kind of the glue that keeps all of that fruit in place. I'm using my offset spatula to go from the center out to the sides and all the way into the corner, really kind of nestling it in there. Now, you don't have to fill all the way to the top. In fact, you don't want to fill this all the way to the top of the pastry because it's not going to give you enough room to really get that fruit in there and in place. It'll be on top, and maybe it fits, maybe it stays on, and maybe it doesn't. So we want a little bit of room that's unfilled. Just
So there's two more questions.
Yes, please.
Cassandra want to know, could you use pudding?
You could if you're stretched for time. Pastry cream and pudding are very similar in texture. Pudding is a little bit, if you were to use, say, a box pudding, it's a little bit wetter than pastry cream, and it's a little bit softer. This stuff will become kind of almost bouncy towards the end of the day if you don't soften it up by stirring it up vigorously. So from here, yeah, you could use pudding. It'll just be softer.
And then what about lemon curd?
Oh, well, I love lemon curd, so yes. Lemon curd's a good one. It's a little bit closer. A really sturdy one is definitely a great change if you don't want to do, say, a vanilla custard filling like this. Lemon curd is just fantastic. And, by that reasoning, you could do different flavors of curd. It doesn't necessarily have to be lemon curd. You could make a lime curd or a passion fruit curd, something that, curds just need to be kind of a higher acid so that it really gives a good flavorful punch, but also helps to cook those eggs that are in there. So yes to all curds as far as I'm concerned. They're all fantastic for a fruit tart like this. Any other questions? These are great questions.
There's another question. Will whipped cream be an option to use instead of pastry cream?
Whipped cream is a tough one because it'll be very, very soft. It won't really hold your fruit in place. I would rather have my whipped cream on top than inside, because also as any cut fruits begin to hit the sugar and the cream, they'll kind of juice out a little bit and cause the whipped cream to deflate or get watery. So I would rather have whipped cream on top and something a little thicker and sturdier and gluier inside. But I like where you're going with that, because yum. Any other questions? All right, so when it comes to figuring out what kinds of fruits to use, really, I mean, the sky's the limit. Whatever's in your supermarket, whatever's in season, go ahead and use it. Right now, the grocery market and the grocery stores are kind of exploding where I'm at with all kinds of stuff. You want to pick fruits that are ripe, that are preferably in season, and that taste good, and that you want to eat, and then go from there. So what I've chosen are mangoes, apricots, kiwis, a big black plum, some strawberries, blackberries, and raspberries. When you're making a fruit tart, you want to make sure that you really showcase what's good, but also you want to see, you know, about changing up colors and shapes, giving it height, stuff like that. So I'm actually going to start with my largest fruit, my mango. Now I've already peeled it somewhat, and I'm just using a Y peeler to peel off the skin. And that'll give me as much fruit as I can possibly get off of this thing. And from there, I'll cut off the bottom. So I've got a nice, actually, I'll do this. I'll cut off the bottom. So I've got a nice flat bottom. It won't try to roll away from me. And starting from the top, if you've never had mango, it has a really big pit. So you have to kind of find the pit. There's the pit. I'm just going to cut away as much as I need, and then maybe put the rest in a smoothie later. So one thing you want to do is kind of, you know, if you got really large pieces of fruit like mango, you want to cut them kind of thin so that they're easier to cut through later on with a knife. I will say also, if there's a fruit that you've meant to try, but you've not really found an excuse to try that papaya or that pineapple or whatever, a fresh fruit tart is a really good way to kind of introduce your palate or somebody else's palate to that new flavor, that new fruit. And while I've got these here, I'm going to go ahead and cut my kiwis as well. I'm going to keep them nice and thin, again, just so that it's easy to cut the piece of tart later. This one's a slippery guy, so.
Chef Renee, while you're cutting that, another question is, can you use a cupcake pan to bake the crust if you want a smaller fruit tart?
Oh, absolutely. You could go as far as using a, well, they have tart tins, which are a lot like cupcake tins, but just a little bit more shallow. You can find those at places like, well, anywhere where they sell bakery supplies, from Michael's or Hobby Lobby to Walmart, Target, all those places. Home Goods. Finding mini tart pans is easier and easier all the time. And yeah, you can make something, you know, big like this one, or you can make little individual ones, which are fantastic if, say, you're catering a party, or you want to have some little past petit four for a celebration. That's a great way to make them smaller. So yeah, we do that. We do that all the time.
And one last question is, what size pan are you using, and how many cups of cream for that size pan?
Oh, well, this is, that's an 8-inch by 8-inch tart pan. The round one that I showed you earlier is a 10-inch. And how much cream? This is about 2/3 of the pastry cream that is in your recipe packet. So I would say approximately 2 cups. Though if you want to use a little bit less, there's always wiggle room. If you want to use a little bit more, there's wiggle room in that direction too. Just as long as you don't use too little, so that there's not enough for the fruit to stick to, or too much where the fruit's falling out. You can play around with the amount of filling that you want to use, for sure. So as I'm doing this, guys, I'm just kind of cutting somewhat differently. I'll do wedges for my apricot. I'll do slices for my plums, round discs for my kiwi, and larger slices for my mango, so that as your eye kind of draws from one area to the next of that tart, it's going to see different sizes, different shapes, different heights. Now, one thing I like to do, just kind of for ease of movement, I like to use a cake stand. Pastry chefs, we love our cake stands. And this has a little bit of shelf liner on it so that my tart won't move around too much. This way, as I'm going from side to side, corner to corner, I can kind of just move it around and play around from there. So I'll start with my largest fruit, which is the mango. And really, guys, there's no rules. You could do kind of whatever you like, depending on the shape of your tart and what you're feeling like that day. I'll fan this out a little bit, kind of put it up on the side a little bit. This can be kind of an abstract or an asymmetrical or very, very symmetrical design. It's up to you. For the strawberries, I want to make sure that I hold them. I don't want to add any of those little green tops, because though they're technically edible, they're also not yummy. So even though they do add a little bit of green, they don't necessarily add much else besides that. So we'll take those off. We'll take off the rest of the stem, because again, texturally speaking, not great. And then I'll just kind of arrange from there. I tend to go more towards symmetry, so I'll put some strawberries in the corners and kind of build from there. And so what I'm trying to do, guys, is as I do this, I want to try and not just give height, but also sort of vary the textures, the shapes. And I want to vary the colors as well, so that you're not just looking at all red in one area and then a bunch of other colors in the next. You've got kind of an even mix of different colors drawing your eye this way and that.
Chef Renee, Diana wants to know if you can use fruit jelly instead of pastry cream.
A fruit jelly. Tell me more. What kind are you thinking of using?
And how long does the tart stay good for?
Well, you know, fresh fruit tarts stay fresh for about a day to 2 days. Their magic is fleeting because you're dealing with a lot of fresh fruit. You want to make sure that you serve it up fresh. So, you know, if you make it in the morning, I would recommend eating it by the evening, or at the very, very latest, the next morning. Really about 24 hours is what you've got. I love that question, because shelf life is an issue with pastries. We want to make sure that we are presenting our customers with the very freshest, the very best. So that means that we have to be really timely in how we present these. These are great questions. Who else has questions?
Could you use huckleberry?
Yes. Oh my gosh. Are you in an area where you get huckleberries pretty easily? Because I'm jealous. Absolutely do use huckleberries. Huckleberries are very strong in flavor, they've got a bit of bite to them. So I would certainly want to use them more sparingly than, say, strawberries. But yeah, absolutely. Can you think of any fruits that might work poorly?
That was actually just a question. Are there any fruits that should not be placed on top or too close together?
Well, too close together, I like to crowd mine in no matter what I'm using, but ones that are not great are things like bananas, because they oxidize and turn brown very, very quickly. So I, more often than not, I advise against using bananas. Same thing with apples, for instance. Apples love to oxidize. They can give a lot of texture and a lot of height, but you have to be really, really careful about those because they turn brown within minutes. So you want to be careful about ones like that. Now, that being said, I happen to really enjoy adding poached fruit, like poached pears that have been poached in, say, a red wine and have taken on that beautiful red wine color. And then from there, slicing them thinly and adding those, or poaching very thin, I wish I had words today, guys. I promise I brought my brain. Poaching very thin slices of pear or apple, and then gently dehydrating them in the oven so that they candy and turn translucent. That can be a lot of fun as well. So there's a lot of things you can do, even with ones that tend to want to oxidize.
Can you put chocolate chips or chocolate pieces on top as well?
Funny you should ask. I've got some chocolate ganache, which is part of the recipe packet, and I'll be throwing a little bit of chocolate ganache on there too as a garnish. I can't think of any fruits on this tart that don't go well with a little kiss of chocolate at the end, so I'm going to add that for sure.
And Michael wants to know, could you use star fruit?
Oh, I love star fruit. In fact, I was lamenting that I could not find star fruit these past couple of days, because had I been able to, I would have been putting those on as well. If you're pinched for ideas, you can always, you can also use very thin slices of melon. You can use really, all kinds of things, pineapple and cherries, all kinds of things. Now, so like I said, there's not a lot of rules to arranging. The one thing that you do want to make sure of is that you're really filling in the entire thing. You want this to be kind of abundant and dramatic. You don't want to see a lot of pastry cream on the surface. It's implied that it's already there. So this is why I like to use my turntable. I like to kind of go around and see if I can see some pastry cream. And if I can, then I'll stick a little piece of fruit in there and then move on and keep on going until I'm pretty well filled up. Now at this point, I'm going to take my glaze here. Now this is just apricot jam. Let me see if I got my jar. Here it is. This is regular old apricot jam that I have taken some out, thrown it in with a couple tablespoons of water into a pot and melted down, and then strained so that there's no chunks. This is very commonly used as a glaze in French pastry, and we really, really like it for fresh fruit tarts because not only does it taste good, it goes on pretty darn clear without adding a lot of color. but it also does something else. It adds shine and it protects the fruit that's been cut from oxidizing even further. So those mangoes, the plums, the apricots, definitely the strawberries, the longer they sit, even under refrigeration, the more they're going to kind of dry out, go kind of limp, start to lose some of their beautiful looks. So we help them out by coating them in not too much, but just a thin layer of jam. Wherever the cut side is, wherever that cut side is exposed, we want to go ahead and throw a little bit on. Being really, really gentle here, just brushing it on to give it a little bit of zhuzh. It does bring out the fruit colors as well. It does give you a little bit of tartness that's not coming from the actual berries.
What type of brush are you using?
This is a regular old pastry brush. I found this at a restaurant supply store, but you can find these really anywhere, Bed Bath & Beyond, Target. Your local grocery store might have them. Just very run of the mill. Although, you know, I have pastry brushes that I've that were originally labeled paint brushes, and I got them from Home Depot. So you can find those just about anywhere. Now, I still have a few little pieces of tart that are just kind of a little bit exposed still. So I'll go ahead and throw in my tiniest pieces of fruit. I've got some pomegranate seeds here. And I'll put those in wherever I see some little gaps, wherever it looks like it needs a little something. You might have noticed I'm starting from my largest pieces of fruit to my smallest. It's a good way to do things. It kind of, the small ones will fill in those little gaps without getting moved around and misplaced as I brush my my tart with the apricot glaze. So this is kind of my final little fill-in. I'll just move them around to where I need them from here, being really gentle and wary not to puncture them. Just like so. And that way it looks even more abundant, more kind of decadent. You want to, you know, there's such a thing as kind of simpler fruit tarts, but if you have the ability to kind of really be decadent with them, go for it.
And would peach jelly work?
Yes, yeah, peach would work just great. If apricot is not your go-to, peach works very well. You could even use an apple jam. Now that's I shouldn't say jam, a clear apple jelly. As long as it goes on clear, you can even use raspberry jam that's treated the same way by throwing it into a pot on low heat and melting it down and then straining it. You don't want any seeds in there, but you know, in a pinch, if you're just unsure about that apricot jam, the availability or whether or not you're going to like it, there are a couple of options there too. The last part is, you might have noticed that there's a little bit of ganache mentioned in the recipe packet as well. And this is kind of an unusual move, but one that, like the pomegranate, will kind of fill in those little spaces and kind of zhuzh up your tart a little bit further. This is a leaf tip. I'm just kind of going in wherever there's a little bit of space.
Do you have any tips for cutting or placing fruit on smaller mini fruit tarts?
Oh, that's a great question because, you know, strawberries this size might not fit on a very small tartlet. So you could just automatically go for smaller pieces of fruit like raspberries, blackberries, blueberries, or you can cut them in advance and lay them kind of diagonally so that they go from one side to the other and then just fill in from there. One way that I don't really recommend because they never seem to turn out quite the way you want them to is to cut strawberries from tip down to stem in rounds because they're strawberries, well, the general shape is always there, but their shaping can kind of vary wildly. So your tarts, if you cut them that way, your tarts might end up looking very different from the ones next to them. So, and we do like uniformity when we are doing several. So I would cut them all from tip to stem and make them spears or wedges or slices and then arrange them as such. I feel like this is done. Now I've got to eat it. So you might have noticed, guys, that I kept this in the tart pan the entire time. That's really just to kind of add a little bit more stability and to help prevent me bumping into the side of the pastry and breaking it. I'm clumsy, so that's always a possibility. So in keeping it in its tart tin, I can then just go ahead and you know, work around without much danger of breaking a side or putting a crack in the side or the corner. And then when it's time to serve it up, I'll simply place my hand underneath and just nice and easy. Just like so. And then from there, I can cut with the removable bottom right there. Or if I were selling this, I would take it and remove it and put it onto a tart board for sale. Any other questions, guys?
What size rotating pan are you using and brand?
Oh, what size is the pan itself?
The rotating pan.
Oh,
The circle, yeah.
Oh, this is a cake stand. It's a standard, I think, 10-inch base. Yep, it's just a regular old cake stand.
And how would you price this?
How would I price the tart?
Yes, the tart.
Well, that's a good question. For pricing this, I would go component by component. So I would already have the price of one tart shell in mind, the amount of pastry cream priced out. So like if I had say 1.5 cups, I would know how much that was. I would add that to the price. And then, you know, the funny thing about fruit is the market prices change from season to season and from region to region. So I would have, if I was just doing this out of my home, I'd have all of my receipts and make sure that I knew exactly how much I was putting in. About a carton worth of blackberries, of raspberries, 1/2 of a container of pomegranate seeds, about a half of a container of strawberries, 1 plum, 1 apricot, 1/2 of a mango, well, 1 whole mango because I had to buy a whole mango, not just 1/2 of one. I keep all of my receipts, add those together, and that would give me my food cost. And then from there, the hard part, which is how much do I charge for the labor? How long did it take for me to make this, where my own hands are, you know, touching food? That's my labor cost right there. And so if it takes, say, an hour total to compose this whole thing, how much is an hour of my time worth? That's one of the hardest questions we as beginning chefs, especially in cottage businesses, have to ask ourselves. How much do I charge for my time? And the answer is, well, how much is your time worth to you? Are you worth $17 an hour or $35 an hour or $50 an hour? Yeah, this is what we have to ask ourselves. We also look around at what other people who are doing this similar things are charging for their time, and see if we compare. Yeah, so this, for me, this is a $40 to a $45 tart if I were selling this out my door.
And do you have to refrigerate it right away, or could you leave it out?
You should refrigerate it right away. If you're not serving it right up, I'm going to switch back to me. So yes, you should. Sorry, there we go. You should. Ta-da, come on. Oh, hold on. Seeing a whole bunch of my living room here. There we go. This is how I normally am seen on in meetings. If you're not serving it up right away, the refrigerator is best. It will keep everything, oh, of course, it will keep everything cool, but it'll keep everything fresher longer too. And some of you are in very warm climates right now, so you wouldn't want to leave this out for too long before putting it back into refrigeration. For to-go orders, how should these be packed? Oh, that's a great question. You should have a nice sturdy base. I use cake boards quite a lot for things like this. So when it comes to packaging, I'll use a tart box, which is only about 4 inches tall, and the areas that I need for this. And then I'll use a nice hard paper board. Usually they're gold, scalloped paperboard to go underneath it, with a little bit of that chocolate ganache gluing it down so it doesn't slide around, because these little guys like to slide. So I want to keep it nice and stationary on that board. And then from there, your customer can unbox it and cut it as they would any tart or even cake. If you have leftover pastry cream, can you freeze it? Oh, Lillian, that's great. You know, funny thing about pastry cream, it doesn't like to freeze. In a perfect world, it would freeze, but we're in an imperfect world. So pastry cream can be left in the refrigerator for 3 days before it starts to kind of get a little stinky, kind of lose its magic, and can take on flavors and scents from, you know, the other food in your fridge. You don't want to go too much longer after that. Technically, it's a what's known as a stirred custard. So custards kind of have a short shelf life. The problem with putting it in the freezer is that you're using cornstarch to make pastry cream, and cornstarch, when it is in something like a pudding or a pastry cream, once it's frozen and then thawed back out, it weeps out. And so all of the water, all of the moisture that is that made it gelatinized in the first place becomes very icy, then thaws out and kind of gets grainy and kind of strange looking. It never gets that beautiful texture quite as well. So we make a lot of pastry cream nice and fresh and make peace with it. What would pricing be like for mini tarts if you wanted to sell them 4 in a box? Oh, that's great. So, well, like you would take your tart dough, you would know how much that tart dough costs. Then you would figure out how many mini tarts you would get out of that one piece. And once you figure that out, say there's 24, then you would divide that, this is only an example, you would divide that price that you paid for making that tart, food cost, and then you would divide it by how many tartlet shells you got out of it. That would give you a rough estimate of how much that tart shell costs. And you do the same for the pastry cream and the same for the fruit as well. You kind of, the first couple of times you price things out, like say a fresh fruit tart or tartlets, it's a little bit of trial and error. You have to kind of, see where the market is going. We're in kind of an area right now where
Uh-oh, Chef Renee, I think you froze. Give me 1 second, guys. Bear with me 1 second. I'm gonna try to get her back.
sorry about that. Am I still here?
Yes, there you go. Welcome
Hi,
back.
Hi, sorry about that. Didn't realize how low my battery was. So hi again. So yeah, you'll divide all of those food costs that you had for the whole and apply it to however many you get, as tartlets. I hope I answered that well. And it is a little bit of trial and error. That's where I got cut off. Egg prices are kind of fluctuating right now. Dairy prices are kind of holding steady. Butter is kind of going up and down a bit. Flour is holding steady, so is sugar. So you have to kind of, keep some, really good notes on how much these ingredients are costing you, and continue to watch those prices and kind of adjust from there. So yeah, it's I adjust my cost sheet a few times a year to see, just to keep on top of it. All right, any other questions I can answer for you guys?
Can the price change if the customer wants to mix and match the flavors of tarts?
Oh yeah, absolutely. What if your customer wanted nothing but red fruit and a chocolate pastry cream, which exists and is delicious? Then your pricing would change between the cost of regular pastry cream and chocolate pastry cream. And if it's only red fruits, are you spending more to get more raspberries and a whole lot less mango? That's what you have to kind of keep in mind. So like my food cost sheet, I wish I had it on me right now. My food cost sheet has the average price this season for raspberries, strawberries, chocolate, all of those things. And, if it's in September, no problem. I'm still getting a lot of red berries. But if it's December, those red berries cost a lot of money if they're available. So, they can fluctuate. And while I'm always, very adaptable to what my customers need, if they're asking for something bespoke and special and kind of off menu, then the understanding is that that might hit them in the pocketbook differently than if they just ordered what was already there. All right. Well, guys, it looks like my time is up. I've gone over again. Jasmine, I'm so sorry. I just, you get me talking and I cannot stop. So thank you, everyone. I hope to see you in future classes. You guys are rocking, and you're in the best possible hands with Randy and Norm and Jasmine. They can answer, gosh darn, any questions. So it was wonderful to talk to you and show you a tart. And now I'm going to go eat some lunch, which is going to be a tart.
Well, thank you, Chef.